Hi guys, welcome back. Today's video is going to be my January wrap up. Now, I didn't have as a successful reading month as I did in December. I kind of fell into a reading slump and I wasn't really enjoying the books that I was reading. So I only ended up reading 7 books for December. So I'm just go ahead and share my thoughts and opinions on them. So the first book I ended up reading was His Only Wife. This book follows, I think her name is Sophia. I said Sophia. One of those. And her mother fall on hard times after her father's passed. Now this wealthy woman ends up getting her mother a job, and she ends up mentioning to her mother that she would like for Afif to marry her son in an arranged marriage in the hopes of breaking up his current relationship. So this book was kind of hard for me to get through due to the fact that everyone in this book wanted her to just be an obedient wife and not really have a say in anything that went on. And you can see her struggling with this throughout the book. A very unlikable character was her uncle. He did a lot of very cringy things, and that ended up adding to the reason why this book was hard for me to read. I did end up finishing it. I did like the overall ending of the book, so I did end up giving this book 3 stars. Now the next book I read, I completely fell in love with. Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This girl named Pippa, for her senior project, she decides to do a story on the murder that happened in her hometown 5 years prior. This very popular girl ends up going missing, and then the main suspect, Saul, and ends up killing himself. Now, Peppa always felt like that Saul was incapable of doing that, so that's why she decides to use this as her senior project and uncover what really happened. Now, this book was phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars. This book definitely lives up to the hype. I find it really crazy how this main character was able to piece together the story that certain detectives couldn't even do, which was really crazy. I did want to continue with the series. I had this idea of reading a series a month, but I didn't get to the rest of the books in the series in the month of January because they weren't available at my library. I had to put it on hold. And so I do currently have it on my borrow shelf, and I'm looking forward to reading it in the next few days. And I think I'm just gonna put that series as a combined January and February read. The next book I ended up reading was I Got Your Number. I was looking for a romance last month and I ended up picking that one. Wrong choice. I'll just say that. But this book follows Poppy, who loses her engagement ring and ironically loses her cell phone on the same day. Now this engagement ring isn't just the old random ring. It is like a family heirloom, so she's kind of like anxious to get her ring back before her fiance finds out. While all this is going on, she finds a random phone in the bin, and this phone ends up belonging to a very wealthy businessman named Sam. This is kind of basically what the story is about. You know, the whole middle part to me was just fluff. I felt like reading the beginning and the ending would have been enough for me. The ending, I did like the romance at the end of the book and things that happened, but this was one of the books that was like very hard for me to get through, so I ended up giving it 2 stars. So the next book I ended up reading is called The Perfect Marriage. Now we have Sarah, who is a very successful defense attorney, and we have her husband Adam, who's having an affair. So in the book, Adam's mistress ends up being murdered, and of course he is the main suspect, and so his wife has to defend him. You know, kind of crazy, right? I really like aspects about this book. I've recently been binge watching How to Get Away with Murder, so Sarah was really giving me Annalise vibes and just I actually really loved her as a character. Like, I just like the independence, the drive, the hard worker and stuff. So, you know, the book follows the investigation, and we do have a lot of twists in this book. One thing I saw in someone else's review, they were saying that this book they were saying that the investigation didn't feel authentic, which I do agree with. It was certain things that happened without the book that I'm like, yeah, that would never happen for real. But the overall synopsis and the storyline in the ending really drew me in. So I ended up giving this book 3 stars. So the next book I ended up reading is called Belle. Now, this book follows a woman named Belle who comes from a wealthy family, and her entire family ends up getting murdered. So she's kind of feeling distraught and not knowing where to go. She ends up dropping out of school and going on the road because she doesn't have any funds and has nowhere to go. She ends up meeting these women on a tour bus who are basically on like an escort tour. Now, this book ended up giving me really Players Club vibes. If you've seen that, then you know what I mean. And then the main like head escort, Lady Passion, was giving like very much Ronnie vibes. Book definitely had a lot going on. We have her trying to come into her own, her potentially becoming an escort, her trying to figure out what happened to her family. This book does definitely have some spice in it, and some scenes do get a bit spicy, so you know that's not for everyone. One thing I did not like about this book was that towards the end, we're in the final chapters and there was still so much that needed to be unfold or that needed to happen that made the ending feel very rushed. I feel like, you know, if the author would have put in a couple more chapters or potentially ended the story early and made this a 2-part series, then this book would end up getting 5 stars from me. But I ended up giving this book 4 stars. The next book I ended up reading is When No One Is Watching. This book follows a woman named Sydney who is in a predominantly black neighborhood in Brooklyn, and her community ends up experiencing a lot of gentrification. Now, during this, she's kind of having to deal with the emotions of everything that's going on, what her neighborhood used to be, and some of her neighbors seem to be moving out of the neighborhood at a quicker rate, or people who she felt like would never have moved out. So she's kind of starting to get concerned about what's going on, if I want to say concerned. She's starting to get like curious about to what's all going on and doesn't necessarily like how her neighborhood is changing. Now, people say that this is like a Get Out version dealing with gentrification. For me personally, I started this book off as an ebook. It was kind of hard for me to get into, so I did switch over to an audiobook. Not a person who likes to read books about things that they're currently going through, so that was the big issue for me. I did struggle on what I wanted to rate this book. I was struggling between 3 and 4 stars. On Goodreads, my review is 4 stars because she did end up mentioning my city at the end of the book, which was like I see why I was getting triggered while reading this, because that is something my community is currently going through. But certain aspects about the book and her encountering different people from the neighborhood and just basically overall trying to figure out what's going on, it just wasn't a book that necessarily caught my attention and pulled me in to make me love it. So I would say that this book is more so a 3.5 star. One thing I forgot to mention about this book is that it does have an unexpected spicing in it, and it was funny because I was listening to it as an audiobook and I had to rush and cut it down because I didn't know that was about to happen. Now, the next book I ended up reading is called Badass Affirmations. I did end up getting this book on Amazon for free. This book is just like a little book of affirmations to get through your day, or just things that you can say to yourself. I did really like this book because they had like different affirmations that I wouldn't necessarily say to myself. You know, I do have the I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am rich, I am net, but this did have other affirmations I would never think to say to myself. So let me pull some up just to read to you what you'll get from this book. I know certain people have an issue where they're like, if you read an audiobook, you can't count that as a book you read. If the book is, like, I even saw someone say, like, if the book is under 100 pages, you can't count that as a book that you've read. But for me personally, I count any and every book that I read. If it's 2 pages, 10 pages, 30 pages, 80 pages, about 1,000 pages, it's still a book. So the book has like affirmations. Some of them say like, you're worthy, you deserve to be successful, you deserve happiness, but you already are an amazing and a beautiful soul. You are already enough, and always remember that. I like that one. You know, that's why I had to highlight that one. I am a money magnet. I am allowed to take time to heal. I naturally attract positive human beings who understand and encourage me. Money is my servant. I am positive that money flows easily to me. I am thankful for the ability to manifest money when I want it. So these are just some of the like affirmations I personally highlighted, but they have like a full list of them. Like, you can read a page a day. You can jot down the ones that you like, recite them to yourself at bedtime, in the morning. Just get your day flowing with some positive vibes. You know, sometimes your dreams mess your day up before it even gets started. But what this one say? Everything I wear looks perfectly unique to me. Radiating strong, happy, and positive energy towards the people. You know, we really like this. So those are all the books that I ended up reading in January. I'm trying to read more books in February, but I'm currently still in a reading slump. I am waiting for that book to pull me out that just gets me going and reading as many books as I did in December. I don't really know how I did that this time around, so we'll see.